Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, 1950s contactee Elizabeth Klarer. The star mother of South Africa: Elizabeth Klarer and the Meton connection. While the mid-century contactee movement was largely defined by the domestic accounts of American technicians and assembly line workers, Elizabeth Klarer emerged as the singular matriarch of South African ufology. A classically trained meteorologist and pilot, Klarer brought an academic lexicon and an intense personal lyricism to her accounts that elevated her far above the standard flying saucer phenomena of the era. Her narrative remains one of the most intimate and controversial chapters in extraterrestrial lore, anchored by an alleged lifelong romance with an off-world emissary and the ultimate taboo of the genre, the birth of a hybrid child. Raised against the dramatic backdrop of South Africa's Drakensberg Mountains, Klarer possessed a sharp observational intellect rooted in the sciences. Though she maintained that her encounters with anomalous craft began during her youth, it was in 1954, near her home in the Natal Midlands, that these interactions crystallized into a profound physical reality. She asserted that she was contacted by Akon, an elite extraterrestrial commander hailing from Meton, a utopian planet orbiting Proxima Centauri. Unlike the American Space Brothers, whose transmissions were frequently dominated by apocalyptic warnings of atomic annihilation, Klarer's account was characterized by a sweeping, almost 19th century romanticism. She described Akon as a figure of striking physical perfection, intellectual brilliance, and advanced scientific mastery, who recognized in her scientific background a kindred spirit and initiated a trans-system romance that would define the rest of her life. Published in 1969, Klarer's seminal work, Beyond the Light Barrier, details the most astonishing zenith of her narrative. Her assertion that in 1956 she was invited and aboard an interstellar mothership for a voyage that transcended terrestrial boundaries. Klarer maintained that the vessel carried her across the vast expanse of the cosmos to Meton, where she resided for 4 months among its people. She portrayed a civilization untouched by the discord of Earth, an ethereal yet technologically supreme society operating in absolute synergy with universal law, characterized by pristine landscapes, sustainable architecture, and an elevated state of consciousness. Drawing upon her formal meteorological background, Klarer approached the physics of the journey with rigorous fascination. She insisted that Akon's craft did not navigate through space via propulsion in the traditional sense, but rather through the deliberate manipulation of electromagnetic fields and light waves. By bending spacetime, the vessels achieved near-instantaneous interstellar transit. Klarer articulated these technical observations with a measured precision, lending her account a veneer of scientific plausibility that captivated intellectual adherents across the globe. Perhaps the most deeply intimate and polarizing dimension of Klarer's testimony was her assertion that she and Akon had conceived a child, a son named Ailing. Klarer maintained that Ailing embodied an intentional biological synthesis between humanity and the civilization of Meton. She recounted her pregnancy and the early life of the child with a profound duality of maternal devotion and sorrow. Because Earth's atmospheric conditions and high radiation environment posed a physiological risk to the boy, she was unable to raise him terrestrially, necessitating his relocation to his father's homeworld. This poignant chapter cast her life in the light of classical tragedy. Klarer framed her existence as that of an exile separated by an impassable cosmic barrier. Bound to a terrestrial sphere, she perceived as spiritually and ecologically arrested, while yearning endlessly for her family across the light years. Reconciling her extraordinary experiences with the public sphere proved to be a formidable trial for Klarer. Her professional background as a meteorologist paradoxically amplified the scrutiny she faced, exposing her to sharp derision from the South African scientific establishment and mainstream media. Because Klarer possessed formal scientific training, critics held her to a rigorous evidentiary standard she could not physically supply. Astronomers quickly pointed out that Proxima Centauri lacked the environmental stability to harbor carbon-based terrestrial-style life, dismissing her interstellar journeys as astronomical impossibility. Despite enduring relentless skepticism and institutional ostracization, Klarer maintained an unwavering composure. Until her death in 1994, she remained a luminous patrician figure within global ufology, lecturing internationally, appearing on television programs, and defending her narrative with unyielding intellectual dignity. To her devoted adherents, she was never a purveyor of fiction. Instead, she stood as a tragic martyr of the cosmos, a woman who had tasted the sublime harmony of the stars, only to be permanently exiled within the intellectual and spiritual shadows of Earth. Elizabeth Klarer fundamentally redefined the architecture of the mid-century contactee movement, steering its trajectory away from geopolitical warnings and toward the realms of profound personal and spiritual transformation. Prior to Klarer's accounts, contactee narratives were largely dominated by paternalistic directives, extraterrestrial brothers descending from the skies to caution humanity against atomic self-destruction. Klarer, conversely, shifted the aperture inward, anchoring the phenomenon within the deeply complex terrain of emotional and biological union. By framing extraterrestrial contact not as a clinical academic seminar or a doctrinal briefing, but as an intimate, world-shattering romance, she legitimized an entirely new paradigm of encounter. She established the archetype of the Star Mother, a figure who mediated the vast gulf between civilizations, not through formal treaties, diplomatic summits, or rigid dogmas, but through the most profoundly human bonds: love, maternity, and kinship. In doing so, Klarer offered a visceral, deeply empathetic blueprint for humanity's relationship with the cosmos, suggesting that our eventual place among the stars might be secured not by our intellect, but by our capacity to love beyond the boundaries of our world. Elizabeth Klarer's narrative struck a profound, resonant chord not only in the post-war 1950s, but across the subsequent decades, enduring as a touchstone for seekers of the anomalous. While her contemporaries focused on geopolitical alarms, nuclear containment, or rigid spiritual dogma, Klarer offered something entirely different and deeply magnetic. Her enduring fascination lies in several distinct psychological and cultural elements. In an era defined by cold scientific rationality, atomic dread, and the sterile march of the space race, Klarer injected pure, unadulterated romance into the cosmos. She transformed the cold void of interstellar space into a sanctuary of breathtaking beauty, suggesting that the universe was not indifferent to human suffering, but capable of profound, deeply personal affection. Post-war society was gripped by a quiet, pervasive sense of alienation, trapped by suburban conformity, industrial pollution, and the looming shadow of global annihilation. Klarer's depiction of Meton offered a utopian vision of harmony, ecological balance, and higher consciousness. For those who felt spiritually stifled by Earth, her account served as a narrative escape hatch into a more enlightened reality. As a trained meteorologist, Klarer bridged two worlds that modern society frequently kept apart: rigorous empirical observation and mystical wonder. By grounding her journeys in the language of light waves, electromagnetic fields, and stellar physics, she appealed to an audience that desired intellectual validation without sacrificing spiritual enchantment. The mid-century UFO narrative was overwhelmingly masculine, dominated by male engineers, pilots, and self-proclaimed prophets discussing treaties, politics, and machinery. Klarer reclaimed the cosmic narrative through the lens of the maternal and the relational. Her archetype of the Star Mother offered a softer, more inclusive gateway to the stars, one where the bridge between worlds was built not through technology or military dominance, but through the universal bonds of love, family, and creation. Ultimately, Elizabeth Klarer's message resonated because it tapped into a deep, eternal human longing. The hope that we are not merely isolated observers gazing into an empty night sky, but cherished children of the cosmos, quietly awaited by something far greater than ourselves. To cast Elizabeth Klarer's mid-century narrative across the landscape of 2026 is to observe a striking paradox. On the surface, a tale of a South African meteorologist eloping with a Proxima Centauri commander to raise a hybrid child on a utopian exoplanet appears wildly dissonant with an era dominated by artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and relentless digital skepticism. Yet, beneath the veneer of modern cynicism, Klarer's core message continues to strike a deep, vibrating chord. In an increasingly hyper-connected yet profoundly lonely society, her narrative speaks directly to contemporary yearnings through several distinct dimensions. Contemporary culture is saturated with algorithmic predictability, virtual environments, and hyper-rationalized data. Klarer's accounts offer a counter-narrative of wild, untamed mystery and transcendent scale. For a generation grappling with screen fatigue and existential burnout, her vision of a harmonious, ecologically integrated cosmos provides an imaginative sanctuary, a reminder that the universe holds depths far beyond our digital interfaces. The modern discourse surrounding non-human intelligence has shifted dramatically, moving away from 1950s metal saucers and toward the ambiguous realms of consciousness, multidimensional phenomena, and anomalous biology. Klarer's focus on an intimate, biological, and emotional bridge between species anticipates modern cultural fascinations with hybridity, posthumanism, and the blurring boundaries between terrestrial and cosmic identity. Modern apocalyptic anxiety, whether fueled by ecological collapse or technological acceleration, mirrors the post-war dread of Klarer's era. However, while contemporary discourse often spirals into dystopian fatalism, Klarer's work steadfastly refuses despair. She insists that humanity's ultimate trajectory is not self-destruction, but an eventual evolution toward higher love and cosmic integration. Elizabeth Klarer endures because she did not merely offer a technical or theological briefing. She offered a profound emotional mythology. She suggested that if we ever cross the vast abyss to meet the stars, we will not arrive as cold calculators of space-time, but as emotional beings seeking connection, belonging, and a home among the infinite. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the Archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.